What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the game room. Today we're going to do a nice festive special, and I feel what's a more festive way than to celebrate is with a magic deck. So it's going to be in my Commander series. So, but basically, what's the main theme of Christmas? It's all about giving things, caring and sharing, and being having fun with friends and family. So, what more way are we going to celebrate this? Is with this deck. So the featured general today is Phelddagrif. Now, Phelddagrif is all about giving. It's a group hug deck. So basically, these decks haven't. They've been around for a while. So Phelddagrif is one, the original one. There's also the Kings thing now, which is a more recent one version, which is I think it will be like a 4-color version of this. So this is Phelddagrif anyway. So Phelddagrif, for those that don't know, he's on the reserve list. And why he's on the reserve list, I've no idea. Anyway, so they don't think they're going to reprint this card anyway. And so Phelddagrif, for those that don't know, Phelddagrif is basically a fictitious creature invented by Richard Garfield, who was the main designer of the game when it came out. And so Phelddagrif, for those that don't know, Phelddagrif is based in an acronym, which basically means if you rearrange the letters, it will form another word. So Phelddagrif is Garfield PhD, which the game's designer, is called Richard Garfield. Anyway, Phelddagrif, for those who don't know, I would say this is my Phelddagrif. Basically, when I won a tournament, I won a tournament at the Games Club in London. I missed the Games Club, actually. They were really good. Say they used to give out lots of stuff, and say I missed the Games Club. I mean, big up to Jason for running all the events over the years. I enjoyed them anyway. Anyway, so this is Phelddagrif. So he's a band commander. So he's one, a green, a blue, and a white for a 4/4. I mean, so this one I say has been altered in the way. So basically, this has been altered. So this was done for me when I made the top so many of the tournament, and I got this altered. So that was the tournament where I basically didn't do a point of damage to anyone in any game, and I did nothing other than basically people enjoyed the deck, and they basically, you had to vote on various categories like most fun, most sporting, and various. And since the categories were heavily skewed in favour of the voting and that, and not winning the games, or some people did win games, but like this is this one, and he's got the little hippo in the thing. So basically, Phelddagrif has an activated abilities are white gains flying into the end of turn, and they all give something to the opponents, so they all get something, because you wouldn't get a 4/4 at this period of the game. So it came out in alliances. I just say that's one of the better cards from alliances from a commander perspective anyway. Gives flying to end of turn, target opponent gains 2 life. I do feel there's a chance you can kill them with that ability. I mean, say it can kill people, but like I wouldn't. I don't even play a win condition. I'm more about the caring and the sharing nature. I was going to say, George, if you're watching, and say you don't like particularly attacking people and playing a passive way. Okay, so blue, it's return Phelddagrif to owner's hand. Target opponent may draw a card, and then may as well. You don't even have to. And his green is trampled to end of turn. Target opponent gets a 1/1 green. I believe it's a green hippo. I can't see the thing on mine because the text has been covered up by the little mini hippo at the end. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the various things in the deck. So basically, you're trying to give people various resources in this deck. So you're basically trying to give them cards, creatures, mana, and various other things. So we basically the deck is basically feeding the person that has the. I think it helps the person that has the best deck at the table, really, to be honest, because they're more likely to win. So it's basically your aim is not to win the game; it's to come second. Anyway, this is Phelddagrif. Right, and we'll move on to the things. We will start with the. I'll start with the creatures first. So they're basically divided into various categories. They're going to be some amount of creatures, and their basic aim is to give someone a resource in any way. We'll start with the miscellaneous creatures that don't really do anything. So this is Archangel of Strife. This was printed in the. I believe it's in the FTV Angels deck originally. I don't think there's another printing of this card, and I believe it was unique to that product. Anyway, Archangel of Strife enters the battlefield. Each player vote War or Peace. And its creatures controlled by the player who chose War get bigger, and creatures controlled by players who chose peace gets +0/+3. So it basically it's a nice 6/6 body on a flyer, and it also gives the other players the ability to either play more aggressively or more defensively. So that's Archangel of Strife. I think my dog's just trying to come in. I'll see if she's coming in. Yep, she's just coming in. Alright, so if we're going to carry on with the video, she's coming to sit on me. She's back again. She just went to the vet. She's okay, she had her ears checked out. Okay, so we're going to move on to another card. So the next creature in the deck is Peacekeeper. So this will be one of the more expensive cards in the deck, because it's on the reserve list. It's 2 and a white for a 1/1 body. It has an upkeep of 1 and a white, and its creatures can't attack. So if when you just want to pacify things on the board. I also play this in my Zedu deck as well. I mean, so in my Zedu deck, we'll make another video about that later. I'm not going to go into that one now. I'm going to say I haven't finished doing this deck list. I've done it on paper, but I haven't got round to doing a Moxfield version of it. I'll link my deck on Moxfield as and when I get round to doing it, sometime in the new year probably. Okay, so then we have Arbiter of Knowledge. This is 6 and a white for a 5/5 vigilance, and it's when Arbiter of Knowledge comes into play, each player's life total becomes the highest life total among all players. So it's a great way to reset the board. Then we have, like, say, another thing with damage prevention. This is Ghost of the Innocence for a white and a white for a 4/5 body. And as if a source would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals half damage, rounded down. So it's a nice little toolbox card. So then we've got another Phelddagrif. So this was, at the time, so this was from Planeshift. So this was around the time they started printing cards in various weird languages. And they did various different ones, and these were given away at the pre-release. So for those who didn't go to the older style of pre-releases, the pre-release card used to be fixed. You used to get one. It wasn't a random one like you get in the newer boxes. They were you just got the one card, and these were the period where they did foreign card. So this one's in Russian. I can show you the English one in a minute for what it does. And in this, say they did other languages. They did, like, I believe they did one in like Sanskrit, and I think they may have even done a Latin one. I can't quite remember. Anyway, this is Phelddagrif. This is Questing Phelddagrif. This is one in green, a blue, and a white. And I'll just show you the English one because I normally carry it around because we can't remember what it does most of the time. Right. So this is the other one I have ready to show people when they don't realise what it does. So it's similar to the other Phelddagrif in a ways. It's green. Questing Phelddagrif gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target opponent puts a hippo into play. The hippo, I wish they actually made hippos, but I don't believe that was before they did the tokens. I believe the token came around later. And we say white Questing Phelddagrif gains protection from black and from red until end of turn. Target opponent gains 2 life. It's a blue Questing Phelddagrif gains flying until end of turn. Target opponent may draw a card. I mean, to be honest, if you can't get the other Phelddagrif, you can probably play this one. Oh no, he's not. He would be. He will, right. If he wasn't, yes, I was going to suggest you could play him as the commander. Then I realised he's not legendary, so ignore what I said. Anyway, that's the other questing. That's Phelddagrif. Then we have cards that are, say, Silvala, the Explorer Return. So this is played in more powerful decks and things that are trying to do bonkers stuff with it. This is completely fair in this deck. It's a green and a white for a 2/4. It's a legendary creature. It's an Elf Scout. It has Parlay, which means tap. Each player reveals the top card of his or her library. For each non-land card revealed, add green to your mana pool and you gain 1 life. Then each player draws a card. So it's card draw. It's quite versatile. It's a powerful card. Then we have some Blast from the Past. So this is like Tempting Worm. At the time, this was probably terrible. And it's 1 and a green for a 5/5 body. And it's when Tempting Worm comes into play, each opponent will put any number of artifact, creatures, enchantment, and or lands from his hand into play. It basically can use to get everything into play if you want to do that. Or technically, it seems like it will speed the game up. Then we've got Noble Benefactor. So this is a card from Weatherlight. So they had a series of cards in Weatherlight which are kind of like a they do something similar to an older card, but for each person. So I'm playing this one from the thing. So this is a global tutoring effect. So it's if noble benefactor is put into the graveyard from play, each player may search his or her library for any card and put it into hand. So it's a global tutor. I believe there's also stuff like Liege of the Hollows and that. I believe that makes squirrels for everyone, but I don't have that. Right, that's noble benefactor. Then we move on to braids, or the commander legal braids anyway. I think the other one is banned. So this is Braid Conjurer deck for 2 blue and a blue for a 2/2 creature. It's a legendary human wizard. I mean, this one's foil. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they may put an artifact, creature, or land from his or her hand into play. So that gives the people a choice. Then we've got Magus of the Vineyard. So this is a 1/1 for a 1/1 body. It's at the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase. They gain green. So that basically helps them. It's like global mana ramp. Then I've got one of my creatures. I don't think it's particularly good, but like I like elephants, so I'll see there's a couple of elephants in this that basically didn't make my elephant deck, and I wanted to play them in something, and I thought what's better, and it's on theme with the theme. So it's 1 and a white mana for a 4/4. But at the beginning, it's a creature, it's an elephant soldier. At the beginning of upkeep, the player with the lowest life total gains control of the Peacekeeper. If they're tired, blah blah, choose one of them. So it's a way to give creatures to people that don't have them or need help. Then we've got Hunted Wampus. This will play at some point. It's a 6/6 for 3 and a green. But when it comes into play, each other player may put a creature card from his or her hand into play. Then we've got the Hunted series of creatures. So these were basically a load of like overstated creatures, but they had a series come into play, a drawback, which basically means you were giving your opponent a selection of creatures for their effect. So this one is the Troll. So I think this was maybe the larger one of the series. So this is 2 green and a green for an 8/4. But when he comes into play, put 4 1/1 blue fairy tokens with flying into play under target opponent's control. Unfortunately, you have to give them all to one person, but like there's other ways you can do it. And it's got green mana regenerate. Then we've got the Lamassu. So it's a fictitious creature. I don't remember that. It's a 2 white for a 5/5 flyer. It's when it comes into play, put a 4/4 black horror creature token into play under target's opponent's control. So I haven't got around to doing the tokens for this deck either. So it's not one I play very often anyway. But I have experience with it. I did win the tournament effectively, or get in the top so many anyway. That's Hunted Lamassu. Then we got Hunted Phantasm. So that's a weird stat line. It's like a 4/6, and not many creatures that have that stat line. Most of them are symmetrical. There are some which are not, but this one is a weird stat line. It's a 1 blue and a blue for a 4/6. Hunted Phantasm is unblockable, and it's when it comes into play, put 5 1/1 red goblin creatures into play under target opponent. That's not a bad body. Then we've got some of the more other creatures. So we've got Edric, Spymaster of Trust. He's a 1 green and a blue for a 2/2. It's a legendary creature, an elf rogue. It's whenever a creature deals combat damage to any opponents, its controller may draw a card. So it's an incentive for you to attack your opponents rather than you, and it deflects the attention. And this is Walking Archive. So this is another way. It's a defender. I don't play it in my defender deck. It's like, yes. Anyway, so it's a 1/1 for 3 mana. It comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's effectively a 2/2 when it comes into play. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player draws a card for each +1/+1 counter on Walking Archive. It also has the ability for 2 a white and a blue to put a counter on it, so you can get people more cards and they want. Okay, so we can get in through the creatures. So this is Heartwood Storyteller. I can't remember if this might be my Tree Folk deck as well, but I feel it's alright. And it's a 1 green and green for a 2/3 body, and it's whenever a player plays a non-creature spell, each of the player's opponents may draw cards. Then we go Kami the Crescent Moon, also in my Nekuzar deck. So it's basically a Howling Mime on a body, or a blue body. So it's a blue for 1/3 spirit. At the beginning of each player's draw step, they draw a card. So it's like Howling Mime. And then he's got some weird series of the things. So I saw this thing from Masks. It's Inundated Djinn. It's a... Sorry about the camera. Trying to get the thing into focus. Yeah, that's better. So that's 1 blue and a blue for a 4/4 flyer. These creatures had to draw back. So when it comes into play, each other player may draw up to 3 cards. Right, that's all the creatures. So we'll move on to the spells. Let's do the spells first. I feel my dog's leaving at the moment. She's off. Had a hard day. Right, so we'll move on to the spells. So we're going to go through the spells first. So we've got various tutors. So we go Enlightened Tutor. That's not a real one, it's a proxy. I've got like 2-3 copies. That's one. So we go through this. So that basically tutors for artifact or enchantment. You know the drill on the tutor. We've got Mystical Tutor. So it's search your library for an instant or sorcery card. And it's blue. That's the FTV printing. And we've got Worldly Tutor. And these tutors are, I believe, all this cycle of tutors are being reprinted in Dominaria Remastered, which is not very long away. It's in like the new year. It's the beginning of January. I think it might be the 7th and the 8th for the pre-release release events. So Worldly Tutors is search your library for a creature and reveal the card to all players. It's good for Commander players anyway, because most of those cards are on the expensive side of the spectrum, so this gives you another chance to get them outside like stuff like the Masters sets and stuff like that. Then we got stuff like Arcane Melee. So this is a card. This will probably see playing some other kind of blue-red non-interactive decks as well. So this is instants and sorcery spells cost 2 less to cast. This is global. This feels like one of the old Enchant World kind of thing effects. And then you say Great Aurora. So this is basically just a way to reset the game. So this is 6, a green, and a green for a 9-mana sorcery. It's each player shuffles all cards from his or her hand and all permanents you control into library. Draw that many cards. Each player may put any number of land onto play. So the Great Aurora. Then we've got Primal Command. It's 3, a green, and a green. It's there's all the modal spells from Lorwyn. I'd say I play pretty much all the commands across various command. I think the black command might be the worst one. I feel I don't think I played that one, but I feel I play nearly all the other ones in Commander across my 42 decks. So we've got a lot more of these videos to come. I'm saying I'm only at the 5th or the 6th one, and I make at least another 2 to 3 each year. Anyway, it's choose to target player gains 7 life. Or put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library. Target player shuffle graveyard into library. Or search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. So it's very versatile. And then we've got these basically. So these were in the Commander set of the year. It was one of the earliest ones, I feel. So they had a mechanic called Join Forces, and they're basically used in various kind of this style of deck. So Join Forces is a mechanic with starting with you. Each player may put any number of mana into it, basically. So this one is each player searches the library for up to X basic land, where X is the total number of mana played this way. Put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle the library. There was a whole series of these. I'll go through them at some point. They're going, will be in the morning. So this is New Frontiers. This is a foil copy. So this is basically a and in fact, it's each player may search his or her library for up to X basic land, put them into play, tapped, and shuffle on an X spell. Yeah, I'm having trouble filming these. I say I need to get the right distance from the camera. So sorry if my thing's getting the thing. It's now in focus, so you can now see it. So it's an X spell for land, and it helps everyone at the table, or hinders. No, it more or less helps most of the time. And we say now we go on to Alliance of Arms. It's another one in the Join Forces cycle. So that came out in what the Commander thing of that year was. So it's a white mana for Join Forces. Starting with you, each player puts X white soldier tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the total amount of mana. So that gives everyone creatures. So that's that one. And we go Show and Tell, which I also make my other deck. And I just say this is it's not busted in this at all. This is I got this printing as well from it was the Masters set. I can't remember. Yeah, that, and you say I was happy to have it as I give me another one to play in this deck, and it's got alternate artwork. I'm a whale. I'm a sucker for alternate artwork and stuff like foils. So this is Show and Tell. For 2 of blue for a sorcery, each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land from hand onto battlefield. Then we've got hypergenesis. So this is basically these spells don't have a converted mana cost. So basically you have to have them on delay. So they basically, or you could cascade into them if you want to play with that way. I mean, that's how some of the decks function in Modern. They cascade into these spells, and you basically get the spell instantly. So this has suspend. So it basically comes in with play with 3 counters for 1 a green and a green, and then basically this is similar to similar to another card. It's starting with you. So basically, spend works is you basically have the counter comes off in your upkeep. When the last one comes off, it goes off. And this is the spell when it goes off is starting with you. Each player will put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land from his hand into play. Repeat the process until no one puts a card into play. And then we've got another Elephant Maker. So this is Elephant Resurgence. So this didn't make my elephant deck. So I thought, I want to put it in this. I like the artwork anyway. I love the elephants. And so check out my elephant video if you want to see that. I mean, that video is doing reasonably well. I mean, say it's a more obscure deck. If you like more obscure decks, I'm going to do some of those. I mean, some of them are going to be more popular. The most one at the moment is the Planeswalker one. Is my most successful video. But anyway, these ones are going to be slightly more unusual. Anyway, so this is each player puts a green elephant creature token into play. Those creatures have this creature's power and toughness equal to a number of creature cards in its controller's graveyard. So it's kind of like a goif of some description. It's like a goif for your creatures only. Oh, not a goif. Yeah. It's more like an original goif. I mean, like the low goif rather than Tarmogoyf. I mean, say Tarmogoyf is go down in price as well. It barely sees much play now. And we said this is this is. You can see it as being a wrath or a harmful card, or you can see it as a card that helps the table. So this is Council's Judgment. This is 1 of white and white. This has the voting mechanic on it, so it's will of the council. So some people like the political mechanics. I mean, this like it's iconic with multiplayer Magic, and whether you like them or not, it's like Marmite, isn't it? I mean, say I love Marmite anyway. So, will of the council is starting with you. Each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tie for the most votes. It's used to get rid of the stuff on the table that is impacting the enjoyment of the game, I would say. That's Council's Judgment. And then we've got another classic. So, you've got Donate that was played in, like, Extended when I started playing. And it said this is 2 of blue for a sorcery and its target player gains control of target permanent you control. Also, I use it in Zedu as well, but we'll get onto that another time. And this is Prosperity, so this is card draws. So these were ways to give people cards. So this is the printing from Visions. This also had printing as... this has more printings. This has got a portal, I think it's Second Age printing, which has nice Fagolio artwork on it. I potentially prefer the one with the Fagolio artwork. It was also printed in, I believe it was in one of the other commander decks. Anyway, so I want the one with the Fagolio artwork. But anyway, it's basically each player draw X cards. Then we've got some wheels. But let's say that some of the wheels in the game are based on people discarding the cards. Some of them give them a choice, like this one. This is like an instant speed one as well. I didn't even realise that. I thought it felt like more like a sorcery. So this is 3 and a blue. For an instant, any number of target opponents discard their hand, draw 7, and you've got a cantrip and draw a card on it as well. So this is a wheel where people have choice. And then we've got Temple Cascade. It's one of the forgotten about Entwine cards, where Entwine cards were the original like stuff that saw play was like Tooth and Nail with Entwine, which was one of the more played ones. And now Entwine is basically a mechanic where you can pay the extra cost, and you get like the spell. The spell normally has 2 effects, and basically if you pay Entwine, you get them both. And we said this one is each player shuffle his or her hand and graveyard into library, or each player draws 7 cards. So it's basically like an overcosted time twister as well. So be careful. She's on the warpath at the moment. She's come back from the vet. She's had her ears sorted out. She's okay. She'll be fine. So up. Yeah, she's moving now. All right. So we've done that one, and we said we go on to. So this is time reversal. Also, I played this in my Nekazar deck. So it's 3 blue and a blue. For each player, shuffle their hand and graveyard into library, then draw 7, and it's exiled. It's basically like a time twister. If you have a time twister, you can play the time twister. And this is the last of the Joined Forces saga. So this is Minds of Glow. So this is the card drawing one. So this is Each player draw X, where X is the total number of mana put into the way for a blue and sorcery. Right, those are the spells. Let's move on to the... We'll do the artifacts next. I feel I've just unlocked my Clash Royale crate. So this is Illusionist Bracers. So this is basically... This is used... It's a good commander card. So there's one of these effects. This one is the one that copies activated abilities. And there's another one that does triggered abilities. So this is Illusionist Bracers. So this basically just copies the activate. So this is basically done on your commander to give more hug to everyone. So this is 2 mana artifact equipment, and it has equip of 3. And it's whether an ability of equipped creature is activated. If it isn't a mana ability, copy the ability. You may choose new targets to the copy. It's a pretty good card. It basically should be used in most things that are commanders that have got these abilities on it. Right, that's that card. This is then a Gate to the Ether. So this one is a 6 mana artifact. It's the beginning of each player's upkeep. The player reveals the top card of his or library. If it's an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land, the player may put it into play. Then we've got some more out of the box tools. So these are basically ways to slow down the game until you get hug people. This is basically Bubble Matrix. This is one of the obscure cards. This is from Weatherlight. I don't think it's expensive at all, this one. I feel it's just harder to find. It's a 4 mana artifact. It's all damage dealt to creatures is reduced to 0. Then we've got stuff like Coercive Portal. This is another one. There's quite a few cards with Will of the Council in this deck. Because they say the mechanic is, well, like it's a different mechanic. And we said Will of the Council, this one's a 4 mana artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, starting with you, each player vote for Carnage or Homage. If Carnage gets more votes, sacrifice Coercive Portal and destroy all non-land permanents. If Homage gets more votes or the vote is tied, draw a card. So it's the Will of the Council. And this is not Knowledge Pool, so this is the ubiquitous... this is Knowledge Pool. It's a 6 mana artifact. And this has imprint. So when Knowledge Pool enters the battlefield, each player exiles the top 3 cards of a library. When a player casts a spell from his or her hand, the player exiles it. If the player does, he may shoot. So you basically works out. You basically put a card in, and then you get one out of the pool. So everyone's basically sharing their cards. You can also do more broken stuff with this. I believe this and is it something like Teferi or something? I think locks the game entirely. And we say that's Knowledge Pool. Then we've got Helm of Awakening. So that's a 2 mana artifact, and it makes all spells cost 1 colourless less to cast. So it's 1. Then we've got Girapori. So this is a 4 mana artifact. It's each player may play an additional land, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if their player control has no cards in hand, they play draw 3 cards. So it's basically accelerates your land and gives you more access to card draw. Right. So then we've got Horn of Greed. That was also in my Nekazar deck. So this is whenever a player plays a land, the player draws a card. It's worth noting in mind it's whenever a player plays a land, not a land comes into play, so you won't get 2 triggers off a fetch land, for instance. And then we've got Otherworldly Atlas for 4 mana artifact. It's tap, put a charge counter on it, and in tap, each player draws a card for each charge counter on Otherworldly Atlas. There's a chance you can mill people out if you really want to, but I wouldn't do it anyway. Then there's Temple Bell, 3 mana artifact for tap. Each player draws a card. Also in Nekazar. Quite a lot of these cards are also in Nekazar. Check out my Nekazar video. Font of Mythos for a 4 mana artifact. For at the beginning of each player's draw step, the player draws 2 additional cards. So it's like a double Howling Mime. And then the last thing is Howling Mime itself. I mean, so this is also available in the current set as a nice retro frame one as well. So if you've got the retro frame one, play what you want. There's a Howling Mime for those. The thing is, at the beginning of each player's draw step, if Howling Mime is untapped, each player draws a card. Right, so those are all the artifacts, and we'll move on to the... we'll do the enchantments. There's more enchantments than the rest. Okay, so we've got some various enchantments. So this is Terror Eternal. So this is a underplayed card. It's for those who do, it's a 2 and a white mana for all lands are indestructible. Some people in Commander play various global effects like Armageddon and stuff like that, and this is when you want to just ensure people get to keep their land in play. Then we've got stuff like Vernal Equinox. Oh, this is quite obscure. So this is 3 and a green for an enchantment, and it's any. This means any player may play creature and enchantment spells anytime she could play an instant. So it enables everyone to play at instant speed, and it can basically warp the game massively. I would think, as I say, it changes the fundamentals really. Okay, so this is Fecundity. This is basically this is one of the foil version of this card. Fecundity is like an enchantment. It's when a creature dies, that creature's controller may draw a card. Bearing worth is some people playing like some style of decks. You may not want to play this because it's sort of like the aristocrat deck could probably benefit from this massively. But it's like a toolbox card. You don't need to play it. And then we've got Concordant Crossroads. So this is the Enchant World. So for people that don't know what Enchant Worlds came out earlier in the lifespan of the game. They came out at Legends. I mean, you say they were based on being there's like a global enchantment. They could only be one enchantment world in play at once. If a second one came out, the first one went. Anyway, Concordant Crossroads was reprinted recently in one of the sets. It's still worth quite a reasonable amount, but it gives you more easier access to this card. This is the Chronicles reprint. There's the one in Legends as well if you want to go that far. Anyway, it looks like a Bird of Paradise kind of thing in the background with the waterfall. Anyway, it means creatures can attack or use abilities that include tap in the turn they come into play. So they basically every creature comes in play with haste is what it's trying to say. It's just an old wording of it. And then we carry on with the caring and sharing thing is Hive Mind. So is an enchantment. So Hive Mind is a 5 and a blue enchantment. So it's whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, each other player copies that spell. And each of those players may choose new targets for the copies. And you can also do other stuff with that. I would say this will play in still playing modern and stuff, and like stuff like Hive Mind and Pact, and then basically they can pay the upkeep for the Pact and they lose, and they basically will get back to your turn, and you say that every thing will be dead. Anyway, so that's Hive Mind. And you've got Eye of the Storm. So this is whenever a player plays an instant or sorcery spell, remove it from the game. Then you copy each instant or sorcery spell removed from the game with Eye of the Storm. For each copy, you can play the copy without paying the mana cost. So it's very similar to... Their cards are quite similar to each other. It's very similar. And then we've got the Cycle of Oaths. So these originated from Urza's block, being the ubiquitous one I'll show you in a minute. So these are one of the underplayed ones. So this is Oath of Lieges. There was a whole cycle of them. There's a black one, and there's one for every colour. I can't remember the red one. I don't think I've got the red one. And this is Oath of Lieges for 1 and white and enchantment. They all have an effect is during each player's upkeep. If you control something less than the opponent, something will trigger. So this one is, if you control fewer land than target opponent, you may search library for a basic land, put into play, and shuffle the library. That's that one. And then there's the most famous one, is Oath of Druids. So this is the one that saw lots of play. It was played in Extended, which was like the precursor to Modern before when I started playing. And notice that you played about 3 creatures in this deck. And it said during each player's upkeep, if the player controls fewer creatures than target opponent, that player may reveal cards from his or her top of library until they reveal a creature card. The player puts that creature into play, and all others go into the graveyard. And the last oath of the cycle. That's Oath of Scholars. So it's during each player's upkeep, if the player has fewer cards in hand, then target opponent, the player may discard his or her hand and draw a card. So it's Oath of Scholars. And then we go on to... Sorry, I'm having trouble with the camera. I'll get it sorted. Right, so we go... Right, so Flourishing. So this is an enchantment. It's 2 and a green, so it's a bit like... At the beginning of each player's draw step, they draw a card, so it's like a Howling Mime. And each player may play an additional land on each of his turns. So this all play in the Heartbeat of Spring deck that I remember playing in Standard at the time. And it saw some play. And then, coincidentally, what's next? Heartbeat of Spring. It was probably sitting in the pile with the same deck that I probably had still in sleeves until I built this deck. It's Heartbeat of Spring, so it's 2 and a green for an enchantment. It's whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of that type into mana pool. and this was basically played as a thing. And then you basically, as certain of the cards that were in that deck, so you had Drifted Phantasm, and you used to invoke Drifted Phantasm to get Mega the X thing, and then you used to tribute that with loads of mana, and you just kill the opponent's stone dead. Anyway, those are the enchantments in the deck. We've got one Planeswalker. So what's the original Hug Planeswalker? It's Jace. Well, the first ability is. Then you say the other ones aren't really. So this is Jace. This is the one of the promo ones. He's one of blue and a blue for a free loyalty Planeswalker. It's 2+2 is each player draw a card. Minus is target player draws a card, and it's -10 is target player mills for 20, but you're not going to really do that. Right, so then we'll round out with the land basis. There's the 36 lands in here. If you don't have the various jewels, use ones you have. As many, try and play as many untapped lands as you can, and that's about it. So we start with the more versatile lands. So we've got Homeward Path, and so my dog is waiting outside the room, and she's all right. Homeward Path. So this land is the one basically that the ZG players don't really want to see, because it's taps for mana, and it's tap each player gain control of all creatures he or she owns. So that's the land the ZG player doesn't want to see. And then we've got Mikorone, Centre of the Sea. It taps for 1 mana, and it's 2 mana each player draw a card. And then we've got Command Tower. This is one of the promo ones. So it's no maximum hand size, enough said, taps for 1 colourless. Then we've got the Maze enchant thing. So these are basically things that stop the combat damage. So this is Mystifying Maze. It's taps for mana, and it's 4 mana exile target attacking creature an opponent controls. A beginning next end step return to the battlefield tapped. So it does basically what Maze of If does, only slightly worse, but it does trigger ETBs as well. And that's Maze of If. That's a proxy. I have the original one as well. And then we've got the thing I'm most likely to leave at one of the tournaments is Rainbow Veil. So this is on the reserve list. This is a land that taps for coloured mana. But in the end step thing, it will go. You give it to control of target opponent. So that's Rainbow Veil. Then we've got Grove of the Burn Willows. So that's like a green-red land. But target opponent get. Oh no, it's each opponent gain 1 life. Ignore me. It's each opponent gain life. That's the FTV one. Then we've got Forbidden Orchard, which is what they used to play in the Oath decks to enable them. So this, it taps a mana of any colour, but it gives you opponent a 1/1 colourless token spirit. Then we've got the land cycle. So these is basically the legendary land. So this is Ganja Castle, the white legendary land from the original Kamigawa. Let's say Kamigawa had some good cards in, not as good as the current one. Anyway, so white prevent the next 2 damage to target legendary creature. And then we've got Minimo School at Water's Edge, taps for blue untapped target legendary permanent. And then we've got Okinawa. So this is taps for green taps target legendary creature gets +1/+1. Then we go fetch lands, so we've got a whole cycle. So we've got Misty Rainforest. I mean, if you have the newer ones or the older ones, it doesn't really matter. They're all the same. I prefer the older ones. The artwork as it's Windswept Heath, the green-white one. And we've got Flooded Strand. Oh, these are a mixed and match. Some of the originals and some aren't. This is the Khans of Tarkir one. So this is a Flooded Strand. Then we've got Buddy Lands. So you've got Glacial Fortress, blue-white Buddy. Sunpetal Fortress, green-white Buddy. And then we've got the Painlands. These are in current sets now, so you can pick them up. They're all fairly cheap unless you're going for original old school foils. And we said this is green-white Painland. Adikar Wastes, blue-white Painland. Yavimaya Coast, that's the original printing. That's from Apocalypse. And we go Savannah. That's not a real one. That's in my other deck. And we go Tropical Island. That is a real one. I've got 2. I mean, say I don't have the other land that will be in there. I don't have the Tundra. I nearly got a Tundra at 30, and then someone didn't turn up the week after, and I've never seen them since. So that was my only chance to get a Tundra. Anyway, so then we go into Shocklands. So you go Breeding Pool, green-blue. Temple Garden, green-white. Then we go Hello Fountain, blue-white. And say if you have the more recent ones, which are like the multiplayer ones, so they come into play untapped. If you have 2 or more opponents, you can play those instead of some of them. Then we go on to basics. So I've just try and get my basics to match. So for these decks, I've used these all from Hour of Devastation, these lands. So I've got four planes. They've all got the, like, whatever the arch kind of thing is called. If someone knows, you can tell me. And then I've got 4 islands as well. So the same similar ones. I try and get the matching sets. And then we go to the last thing. So we've got four forests to finish with. Anyway, that's the end of that deck. Anyway, say like I'll keep on doing these videos. I'll try and keep to my one a month. So next year I'm going to try and do some other magic content. In which terms I would say other magic content. I'm trying to do either some. I'm probably going to do like some opening videos. So like I'm going to open up a selection of product live and see what happens basically. So but that requires me to keep product, and I don't keep most of my product for very long, as I like opening things on the spot. But I might try and do those. I mean, to say I'll keep on trying to do this anyway. Happy Christmas and New Year for people that were those that know me. I'll see you in the New Year. Thanks very much, and as I say, like, comment, and subscribe. The best present you can give me is a subscription. As I say, I'm trying to get the YouTube algorithm to pay out, but I need like 1,000 subs. I'll get there eventually. All right, thanks very much. See you soon. Love you. Bye.